This is Alice Ginsberg, and I have another one of my travelogues for you today. We are going to go to the island of Kauai. This is in the Hawaiian Islands, but not to be confused with Hawaii, which is the big island. This is the island of Kauai, Kauai. And Kauai is the northernmost island of the Hawaiian island chain. I have here a map of the Hawaiian Islands, so you can see Kauai is in the upper left-hand corner. Now, the next southern island is Oahu, and that's the island you're probably most familiar with, I would guess, because you see Honolulu, and just to the very left of Honolulu, you will see, if you look closely, Pearl Harbor. But today we are going to Kauai. And this is where I like to spend about my winters. I have a timeshare on Kauai, which is how I come to spend so much time and have so many photos of this island. I never get tired of this island, and I hope you'll agree with me once you see this travelogue. Kauai is known as the Garden Isle, or also known as the Royal Isle. It's the oldest inhabited island of the Hawaiian Islands. And its topography is very interesting. Here you see the island of Kauai, and sort of in the middle, just a little bit off center, you'll see a mountain range with the highest peak on the island. It's called Mount Waialeale. It's also one of, if not the most rainiest place on Earth, on the planet Earth. It last erupted 5 million years ago, and it formed the topography of the island when it exploded. There's a huge crater just to the right of the island, and there's a canyon formed by a river here to the left of Mount Waialeale in the brown. That's the Waimea Canyon, and we will visit all of these places on the island. You will note that there is a major road that goes from a little west of Kekaha, which is the westernmost point on the island. You can see there's like a little airplane designation here. You could see that. That is an Air Force base. There's also in the canyon, in the mountains, there's a NASA observation post. There's also a U.S. Geological Survey observation post for checking on the movement of tectonic plates and checking on rainfall and ecological occurrences, earthquakes and such in the Pacific Ocean. That monitoring station is also in Waimea Canyon. So from where this little airplane insignia is, and Barking Sands and Polihali Beach, which is over to the left, the westernmost point, there's a highway that goes all the way around. And when I say a highway, I mean it's a blacktop road, and it's about 2.5 lanes wide. And there's two-way traffic. In some places it's 3 lanes, but it's mostly 2 lanes. And we go south and we go around to Poipu and up the eastern shore to Lahui, which is where the major airport is, and up the coast to Wailua and Kapa'a, Kealia and Ahola, and we go around to the north. There is a very famous lighthouse, which is a national landmark up in the north at Kilauea. Princeville you may have heard of with the golf course, very famous golf course at Princeville. And you come to Hanalei, and you come out over here to Ka Beach. But from Ka Beach up in the north I would say just to left of center, down to this airplane insignia on the far west, there are no roads at all. And that's because this is the Nepali coast. And I will show you why there are no roads there. It is one of the most scenic places in the United States. Well, let's go to Kauai. In 500 AD, the Polynesians, using the stars and trade winds to navigate their outrigger canoes, sailed 3,000 miles to the island of Kauai. It was the first inhabited island. Then came the Tahitians, who were more powerful and aggressive than the Polynesians, and they forced the first settlers to the neighboring islands, such as Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island. There were always coconut palms on the garden aisle, and this was a big attraction because coconuts are very useful. You have the bark of the trees, you have the palm fronds, you have the coconut itself, which is a source of food. The first settlers, the Polynesians, brought taro, yams, bananas, and sugarcane with them. And they planted all of that on the garden aisle on Kauai because the climate was very, very good for cultivation. Taro is a staple food of the natives. They use it to make a thing called poi, which is a paste. It's a starch. Now, in 1778, Captain Cook arrived in Waimea, which is down here in the south, just to the east of the end of the highway. And this is where he made his first landfall in the Hawaiian Islands. And he called the Hawaiian Islands the Sandwich Islands in honor of the Earl of Sandwich. Please note that you'll hear a lot about King Kamehameha when you go to Hawaii, the Hawaiian Islands, especially if you go to Oahu. There's a gold-plated statue of King Kamehameha in Honolulu. Kamehameha wanted to unite all of the Hawaiian Islands, all of the tribes. He wanted to unite them into one country, government. And he tried twice to incorporate Kauai into his empire, if you will. He was unsuccessful both times. He never did conquer Kauai. And the Kauaian king initiated talks with Kamehameha in order to come to a peaceful resolution, which was achieved in 1810. But the king of Kauai continued as the governor and the head honcho on the island of Kauai. Sugarcane was the biggest crop. Now you may think of pineapple as being the Hawaiian crop, but pineapple was not grown in Hawaii until 1899. Sugarcane was always the biggest crop. There were large plantations on the island of Kauai, and you can still see them today. The island was carved up into several plantations. The Rice, that was the family name, the Rice Plantation, Wilcox, McBride, let's see, Allerton. These were all famous plantation names on the island of Kauai. You can see the remains of the old mills today and the old storehouses. The plantations, the land, they're still owned by the original families unless they have donated their land for civic purposes. And the plantation homes that have survived are very grand. There's one plantation home that is absolutely gorgeous and has wonderful gardens around it, and it houses the Plantation Gardens restaurant, which is a great place for an evening meal. Let's see, the waves of immigrants arrived to be the laborers on these plantations. There were Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, Mexican, Portuguese, German, Spanish, Puerto Ricans. Those were all waves of immigrants come to work on the plantations. And the Kauai Museum has a really good exhibit and explanation of the history and how these waves of immigration took place. And it itself is on the site of the original rice plantation house. The Wilcox plantation, the Wilcox family, donated their land for the medical district on the island of Kauai, and the hospital there is named after the Wilcox family. So you have Kauai, which was primarily an agricultural island, and we'll take a look at some of the wonderful flora and fauna that grow here. This is an aerial view of where I hang out at my timeshare. You can see there's a cruise ship in the harbor. This is Nawili Bay, and it was a World War II base during the war. It was an airplane base, and it was also the deepest harbor in the Hawaiian Islands. It's deeper than Pearl Harbor, and it's also very well sheltered. So it was very strategic. You have to think about this. Being the northernmost island of the Hawaiian island chain makes Kauai the spot in the US that is closest to North Korea, China, Japan, and so on. This bay here to the right, this is Kalapaki Bay, and as you can see, it has a lovely half moon crescent-shaped beach, and that's my beach. I love that beach. Now, you can also see some development here in the center of the picture. This development was supposed to be a Ritz-Carlton back in 2008. But when the financial crisis hit, the project was suspended and eventually abandoned. And this has become the Timbers Resort. And the Timbers Resort just opened in 2019. It does, however, have a fabulous golf course, which is very challenging. And it's a beautiful golf course. And that was also being developed at the time. That's been developed since this Ritz-Carlton development was abandoned. And now this is a Timbers Resort. There are buildings here. There are condos. There are townhouses here today. My building, where I timeshare, is just on this side, on the extreme right side of the picture. You can see one of the buildings on the extreme right side, and the other two buildings are not in the picture, but that's where the timeshare is. It's also a hotel. Here we have some of the lovely flora on the island of Kauai, the Garden Isle. Your orchids. Okay, morning glories. Look at that. Here's a coconut palm. You can see the fruit, the coconuts up there in the trees. There are no date palms in Hawaii. They're all coconut palms. This is part of Allerton Garden, and it's a very beautiful garden. I photographed it for the stonework because just to show you how gorgeous the landscaping is. There's your pineapple. There's a cruise ship in the Willy Willy Harbor. I have been on this cruise ship. This is the Regent Seven Seas Navigator, and she makes trips when it's not the pandemic. She makes trips to Hawaii, and she does an around the world cruise. I've been on her to sail from Cape Town, South Africa to Rio. I've been on her to sail the Baltic, and she only holds 490 passengers and 343 crew. Okay, a little more history. Captain Cook arrives in Kauai in 1778. You may recall from your history, perhaps, in 1779, the natives killed him. Okay, this is a mural at my timeshare at the Marriott Lahui Kauai Beach Club, showing the natives welcoming welcoming the English sailors off of Captain Cook's ship. So, and here's something Kauai is very famous for. This is a breaching humpback whale. And from January until maybe mid-March, if you're lucky, you can see the males breaching, trying to impress the females. This is where the females become pregnant, and then they migrate back to Alaska, and they do all of their feeding in the Alaskan waters, and then the following year, they migrate back to Kauai, to the Hawaiian Islands, to Kauai and Maui. Maui also gets a lot of whales because there's a channel between a couple of the smaller islands near Maui where the females particularly like to give birth. But plenty of whales are birthed off the island of Kauai as well. Okay, a little bit of history before we get into the scenery. In 1959, statehood changed the economy of Kauai from agriculture to tourism and movies. They shoot a lot of movies in Kauai. And the economy changed because US taxes and labor laws rendered the crops too expensive to grow and export. Some of the movies which have been made on Kauai are Blue Hawaii with Elvis Presley, Jurassic Park. The TV series Fantasy Island was filmed on Kauai consistently. And I'll show you the waterfall. You might remember from Fantasy Island when the plane turns to land on Fantasy Island, it circles over a double waterfall. That's why Lua Falls. The movie Soul Surfer, about Bethany Hamilton, the young lady who lost an arm to a shark attack and yet went on to be a professional surfer, was actually, she's from Kauai, and it was filmed here. The Descendants was filmed here. Raiders of the Lost Ark, 6 Days, 7 Nights. There are photos of Harrison Ford all over the island where he used to go to eat dinner and hang out. Pirates of the Caribbean, Johnny Depp lived on a sailboat, a schooner that was moored in Hanalei Bay while he filmed Pirates of the Caribbean. And most of his supporting cast actually stayed at the Kauai Beach Club, and I got to meet some of them while they were filming. This is a photo of my husband to the left and myself in my Blackhawks t-shirt, and two of our friends from Pennsylvania. And we are standing at Mahalapu Beach, and sometimes known as Shipwreck Beach, which is on the southern side of Kauai. Beautiful trail, not very difficult at all, that you can walk to get to this vista. But one of the things that people do is they build these little structures and they have they sometimes live on the beach, and they build fires and so on. There are laws now; they've been regulated so that they can't do that anymore. But Steve and I are fond of telling people that this structure in the background is our timeshare. Another view from the trail to Mahalapu Beach. This is the famous waterfall. You probably recognize the double waterfall from Fantasy Island. This is Wailua Falls. And the trees at the top of the falls that have the flat tops, those are called monkey pod trees, right here. This is an aerial view of Poipu Beach, the southern side of the island. But you'll notice if you go inland, you could see mountains, and you could see several ranges of mountains. This is all left over from the volcanic eruption of Mount Waialeale. And there are craters within these mountains as well. A view of Waimea Canyon. You can see there's a stream at the very, very bottom. Mark Twain called this place the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. And it's really interesting to go there at different times of day. To go there in the morning when the sun is just coming up, in midday, the shadows change the colors constantly. There's a lot of iron in the soil here, and so the dirt is very red. And the shadows play off of the different colors in the canyon. And if you go at sunset, the whole place is glowing red and gold. Another view of the canyon. You'll see all these clouds in the background. As I said, Mount Waialeale is one of the rainiest places on Earth, if not the rainiest place on Earth. It is very, very unusual to see the top of Mount Waialeale. And here she is, shrouded in clouds. And here is why there is no highway along the Na Pali coast. Look at these knife-edged ridges. There are many native legends about these ridges. Some of them say that they were Menehune natives. Menehune was a tribe who were trying to escape from a fiery god. And when they got here, they were running up the mountain, and then they were turned to stone. That's a legend. This is a very famous and a really good beach for snorkeling. You can see it goes in, and there's two beaches here. There's an archway here that connects them, and it's a very famous beach for snorkeling in the blue waters off of Kauai. The reef that goes around Kauai and is sometimes, and you can see part of it also in some of the other Hawaiian islands, is the third largest coral reef in the world. The first one, of course, is the Great Barrier Reef. The second one is in the Caribbean. It's the Mesopotamian Reef. And then comes the Hawaiian Reef. Here we are coming back towards the Poipu Bay. You can see the hotel over here, the lighthouse, of course. And Kauai from the air looks like this all along the coastline, except when you get to the Na Pali coast, which looks like that. This is a very famous painter. His name is James Coleman, and he paints on the island of Kauai. You can see he's at work here. He works primarily in oils. Okay, this is a beautiful garden overlooking the entrance to Kalapaki Bay. This is part of my timeshare. You can get a 2 or a 3-bedroom apartment, complete with dining room, living room, full kitchen, washer, dryer, 2 or 3 bedrooms, 2 or 3 bathrooms in these buildings here. It's owned by Marriott. It's called Kalani'upu, and we call it the lagoons because it's got a lot of lagoons around on the property. Here are the taro fields, which you see if you're driving north on the way to Princeville. Taro is like rice. It needs watery paddies to grow. And you can see various stages of cultivation in these fields here. But this is all taro root. And here again, Mount Waialeale shrouded in clouds. One of your famous Hawaiian sunsets. And this is not unusual. You see sunsets like this almost any day of the week. If it's not totally clouded over, which it sometimes is. But this is your typical Hawaiian sunset. Here we have a white macaw parrot. It's on the grounds of the Marriott. And sometimes he performs and he swings and he'll talk to you if you're lucky. Sometimes he's bored and he goes to sleep. In the distance, you can see a triple waterfall. This is Opaika Falls. This is about as close as you can get to it, though, because very heavy growth here and very treacherous, very steep hillsides. When they get wet, they're extremely slippery. Every year, several people will try to climb the falls. And every year, at least, I'm not kidding you, at least 5 people die trying to do it. This is a very treacherous piece of land, and this is as close as you'll get to Opaika Falls. And be safe. This is the northern end of the Napali coast. You can see it starting here. This is Ka Beach. And here, there's the coral reef. People from all over the world come to snorkel here. I do not snorkel. I have friends who have come here and said that it's absolutely wonderful to snorkel here. We also get monk seals here. In fact, one year there was a monk seal on the beach and she was pregnant and about to give birth. Monk seals are an endangered species. And she was roped off by the lifeguards and rangers, and she safely delivered her pup and taught it how to swim, and off they went. Here we are again in Waimea Canyon. This is a very spiritual place for me. And you'll see over to the left, you'll see a waterfall here. I'll have a better picture of it later on in the travelogue. It's called Waipeo Falls, and it's got 3 levels. It's a beautiful cascading waterfall. Notice all the red, all the iron, and all the sedimentary rocks. See the layers of sedimentary rocks here? These are volcanic rocks that have been layered by wind, rain, and sediments. Kalalau Lookout, sometimes called Kalalau Lookout. This is in Waimea Canyon. It's on the sea side, obviously, of Waimea Canyon. And I love this valley. It clouds over and then the clouds move off. I call it my Brigadoon moment. The village of Brigadoon that only came to life every 100 years or so. This is the valley coming to life. This was a sacred valley for the natives, and the natives would bury their kahunas, their high priests, in this valley. It is very still here and very quiet. This is a funny story. This is my husband, and he started binge watching on his computer. And one year he was binge watching, I think it was Boardwalk Empire. And he started to get black spots on his face. And he got very worried. And I found him one night, late at night, around midnight, looking up on the web what it meant to have black spots on your face. It turned out that he was wearing out his earphones and they were disintegrating. And that's what caused the black spots. So here he is with towels wrapped around his earphones so that he can continue binge watching. And here he is again on Polahali Beach. This is a strip of sand that it's very wide. Some people try to drive on it, but you have to be very careful because you can easily get your car swamped in sand when you try to get out at low tide. The surf here is consistently extremely rough. And I stood at the very edge of this surf, and I was actually upended by the surf coming in. Polahali Beach is at the southern end of the Nepali coast. And I have heard stories that this is a favorite place for the Dalai Lama to come and meditate. Here you have a Hawaiian woodpecker. Pretty bird, very small, delicate legs, very pretty, very inquisitive, and very shy. Here he is again. I was lucky to get a shot of him. This is the Kalalau lookout again, and it's totally clear, as you can see. This is the Sacred Valley. Here is Kalapaki Beach, and as you can see, there's a major cruise ship leaving. Every Thursday, the NCL, Norwegian line, comes in here with the Pride of America, NCL's Pride of America, and she stays overnight Thursday and leaves on Friday. She really has to thread a needle to get in and out of Nowili Harbor. She comes within 50 feet of the coastline right here, as you can see. I'm sorry, not 50 feet, 50 yards. Not very far away at all. You feel like you could practically touch her. Weddings are held on Kauai, and you can see here's a couple newly married with their officiant, and they have had a Hawaiian wedding on Kalapaki Beach. I felt very sad for this couple. It was a destination wedding, and nobody from their family could come. They were by themselves, but yes, they got married. It was a beautiful ceremony. They had music, they had champagne, they had videography and photography, as you can see, and the officiant is garbed in native dress. Here's a lei that my husband bought me one year for Valentine's Day. These are all flowers. Very intricate, very gorgeous. Am I a lucky girl? Here we are whale watching. Look very closely just to the left of the mast, and you'll see a whale's fluke, the whale's tail. And here we have a whale breaching. See that? The white coming out just to the left of the mast. Spectacular. Scenery on the north shore of Kauai. Here we are again in the Kalalau Lookout. You can see the mist coming in and the different colors that the sun and the mist create in the valley. Again, Waimea Canyon, Mark Twain's Grand Canyon of the Pacific. Here you've got that Waipaio waterfall again. There was a Russian fort on the island of Kauai at one time, and this is part of what remains there. In the 1800s, the Russians established a fort. They called it Fort Elizabeth. There's not much left to see. This is mainly the largest artifact on the site. Akahuni Landing. This was a large harbor that had fishing vessels, and it was the center for an export trade. There is not much left, as you can see here, but it's great to come here because sea turtles love to check this place out. Sea turtles love this place, and you can see them. This is actually my favorite beach in Kauai, and this is my favorite picture of Kalapaki Beach. I take a lot of pictures of it, and it's really beautiful. In January and February, sometimes in the opening to the bay here, you can see whales breaching, and that's quite an event when that happens. I have some more pictures of flowers on Kauai, just really beautiful flora and fauna. And this is a bird of paradise that I caught blooming. I was pretty lucky to get this shot. Another view of this is Mahalapu'u Beach. This is on the south side of the island, great for parasailing. There's also a wonderful nature trail that you can walk up the hills, up the cliff. You go through about 3 ecosystems when you take this nature walk. And you also pass a blowhole where the sea is coming in under the shelf going out into the ocean, and as the sea retracts, the pressure causes the air to blow under intense pressure, and it's really quite something to feel the air blowing up through this hole. I think I mentioned a monk seal when I was talking about Ka Beach. And this is a picture of a monk seal, a very pregnant monk seal, who is doing her siesta. She's sunbathing on Ka Beach. And you can see the reef out here, which is very close to the shoreline. And this makes it a very popular beach for snorkelers. Typically, when a monk seal comes on the beach, they rope her off to give her space because monk seals are an endangered species. A very mystical picture of Mount Waialeale. Here, you cannot see the summit. She's shrouded in clouds, one of the rainiest, if not the rainiest spot on Earth, but a very mystical picture. I got this picture while we were hiking up one of the trails that goes up Sleeping Giant. Here we have a video. I don't know if this will play for you, but I could tell you that the small rooster over here to the left is a fake, and the large rooster to the right is a real rooster. And Let's see if this will play for you. Watch this.
Maybe he's gonna get it this time, John. No.
This is on Kalapaki Beach.
I'm gonna go in to go to the bathroom.
And we set this up on Kalapaki Beach. And you can see this rooster is very territorial, and he really whacks our fake rooster. Watch this. There he goes. There he goes. There he goes. Here we have a sunset. This is what I wanted to show you. This is Spouting Horn. This is the most famous blowhole on Kauai, probably in all of the Hawaiian Islands. There was another blowhole over out of the picture, but it got so wide that it does not spout as much anymore. Excuse me. But you can see the sea will come in under this lava shelf, and as the sea retracts, the pressure builds up, and boom, we have a fairly spectacular blow here of mist from Spouting Horn on the southern shore, on the Poipu shore of Kauai. And this, of course, is your sunset. And this is the end of my travelogue. I will say mahalo, which is Hawaiian for thank you. Mahalo kaiaki is thank you very much. And we will bid farewell to the Garden Isle, the Royal Isle, the island of Kauai. I hope you have enjoyed this travelogue, and I bid you aloha.